I am your host, Dr. Saran Nataki. Welcome to Power 365 Phenomenal Woman Wednesday. This podcast will address topics ranging from what is a phenomenal woman? Are you enough? Community service, paying it forward, the manifestation of dreams through words and action, the power in being a woman, fashion, and much more. Stay tuned.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal woman.
It's Phenomenal Woman Wednesday.
Hello. Welcome back to Phenomenal Woman Wednesday. So today I have an extra special guest with me, Mrs. Qiana Amos. Mrs. Qiana Amos is a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends for over 20 years, I think, or close to it. And she's also a sorority sister of mine. She is a healthcare professional. She has her undergraduate degree in psychobiology. She also has a master's in public health in both health services research and epidemiology, and she is currently completing her doctoral degree in healthcare administration. And she's a wife, a mom, and a daughter-in-law. I think that's important to mention because I think you're a wonderful daughter-in-law. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to be my special guest today. I want to say welcome, and then I want to ask you, what does it mean to be a phenomenal woman?
Well, I would say a phenomenal woman is one that just carries herself in a way that's loving to other people, not just thinking about herself, but putting others first, and just being there. I mean, for me, it's been being there for my family, my friends, and just being the best me that I can be in spite of many of the adversities that I faced in my life, and just always trying to rise to the top, but at the same time, ensuring that I'm giving back and helping others that are maybe going through the same thing that I'm going through, or have gone through, give them the encouragement to know that they can do it as well. So for me, I think I would not have gotten to where I am today without other phenomenal women feeding into me, pouring over me, praying for me, and instilling in me the confidence that I needed to become who I am.
Awesome. I love your response. Being phenomenal is receiving what others have poured into you, and then providing that reciprocity. So for other women,
yeah,
I love
and just
that.
rising above, being able to just rise above anything that we might be facing.
Adversity. Yeah. I mean, because I always say, life is not just an upward shot. Everyone is going to have, some peaks and valleys, and being able, and how you ride those waves of adversity. Yeah, makes you phenomenal. I love that. So who would you say have been the phenomenal women in your life?
I think the first person is my mom. She, towards the latter years of my life, we kind of fell apart, drifted apart as I went into college. But I think me mentioning her first speaks to the fact that she instilled in me so much even before things didn't, I guess. Me mentioning her first speaks so much to the fact of what she instilled in me prior to us even drifting apart. I always looked up to her and saw her as just this shining star among many stars, but she was my hero. She was my first hero. She gave me many of the morals and standards that I've set for myself, and she always pushed me to challenge myself and to do more than I even thought I could do. And she was always my biggest cheerleader. So that's the first example that I had of a phenomenal woman. And then along my journey in life, I've met other phenomenal women that I have used to kind of be an example to me in different areas. So my second one I'd say is, if I'm going through the trajectory of my life or the timeline of my life, I'd say the second one would be Dr. Luke. So she was the first woman that I saw, and I was in high school, that I saw get a doctorate. and just be able to show that, she came from, I don't want to say nothing, but she worked very hard to get where she was, and I really looked up to her, and that was the first example that I had of a female, Black female, rising above and attaining this doctorate, and I didn't know that was even possible. And then after that, throughout my life, my godmother, she was the one who took me in and just really, no questions asked. And I think that's phenomenal of her. She was, dealing with her own issues, but she said she would, take a chance on me and allow me to be part of her family and let me live with her. So that was another phenomenal woman that played a big role in my life. And I would say you would always, try to give me courage, encouragement, and instill in me confidence. And so looking at you, I feel like we have similar experiences in life. And so being able to relate to someone who was my age that was going through some of the things I was going through, or had gone through some of the things I was going through, and being able to give me that advice because you had just either come out of it or we were in it together in certain situations, showed me that, I was going to be okay, and that, I can too become phenomenal as well. So, there's been many women along my timelines throughout my life that have contributed to my life and have been great examples of phenomenal women. At different points when I needed them too. Like, they all kind of came at the right time when I needed to have that.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for even, calling me out. I'm very honored that you think that highly of me, because I think that way of you, which is why I've invited you to be a guest on my show. I I think that also there's great honor in being able to name your mother first as, your first phenomenal woman. And I love that you acknowledge that she wasn't perfect, because none of us are perfect. And I'm sure when our children, our daughters, they mature and they look back on their lives, they'll have instances of, when we ourselves were not perfect, and we made mistakes, because we're all figuring it out as we go. But each person, I believe, still has something phenomenal to offer. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so, what would you say? Have you adopted any of the traits that you've seen or called out in the phenomenal women in your life, and even some that you may not have mentioned? Because I know that list, just knowing your circle and your family, that list can be exhaustive because you have many phenomenal women. Um, what would be some of those characteristics that you have inherited for yourself?
That's a good question. So I would say for sure, just being a survivor, watching the women I've mentioned, and even just experiencing it for myself, figuring out how to make the best of any situation and survive and overcome. So I would have to say, just being a survivor. So I think I've had a lot of people say that don't know me. They might just know of me or just have worked with me in certain capacities, and they'll say, "Oh, you're so smart. You're so smart." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's fine, and it's great to be smart, but I really feel like the word survivor is what really describes me best." And so those that know me know that would be more of the adjective that would be a best fit for me. And I think that's the one important thing that I've gotten from all the women that I've mentioned, plus even others that maybe I didn't mention, and just even watching people in my circle. But I think that's the one thing about me. I just figure I know how to make lemons out of lemonade, and I've done that multiple times in my life. The other characteristics is just to be a go-getter. I'm very driven and determined to always just be the best me that I can be. And I think part of that comes from my experiences and just learning that I always told myself I didn't want my children to experience some of the things that I experienced. And so I have gone above and beyond, I feel, sometimes to the point of exhaustion, just trying to make things happen so that they don't have to ever feel as though they're going without, or that they're experiencing anything close to what I've experienced, or feeling as though they don't have or not have the opportunity to have something. So The other thing I feel, the trait that I feel I have is just being able to um, love everyone. I feel like growing up, I had a lot of judgment put against me because of maybe some of the issues that I've gone through, not being able to have certain things and experience certain things. But I feel like a lot of people may have judged me. So I'm still learning this, but being able to be non-judgmental and to love on everyone and see people for who they really are and love them in spite of whatever it is that their faults are, whatever they might be going through, and just being able to help them and help them become great people as well.
Yeah. Wow. I think the characteristics that you used to describe yourself are spot on, especially in terms of being a survivor, because I've I've watched you. I've watched you mature into this woman. And when you first entered my life, I watched you just go. You were very determined. You weren't there was never and at least from my interpretation, there was never any question about whether you were going to be successful. It was about when you get there. It was always that's always how it was. You were like, when I get there, when I do this, I'm going to do this, I'm doing this, and you would do it. Like you would just full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that when you talk about being you know, a survivor and really providing for your children, the one thing that I think we even both share is just having a very strong work ethic. Like you've said, working to exhaustion almost, or not almost, but working to
Yeah.
exhaustion.
Yeah.
And I've had plenty of conversations about how to get balance in your life, and we've had to bounce it back and forth and like kind of throw that ball back and forth because we both found ourselves in that position. But I want you to talk a little bit about, what is your motivation to work so hard? You touched upon it in terms of talking about how you want your children to not have experience with some of the experiences that you had growing up with, maybe times when there may have been a lack or a gap in what your needs might have been. Um, can you talk a little bit about that? In terms of what specifically those experiences might have been.
hmm Oh, that I've experienced as a kid, or that yeah.
Yes.
So at the age of, I want to say I was in ninth grade. No, I was in 10th grade. And so my mother, she found, she was stressed out. She was going through a divorce, and so she found herself on drugs. And I'm an only child from my mom, and so it was just my mother and I. And there were times when, she would either use the money to purchase drugs or do what she was doing, and we would not have electricity. And I'd have to come home to an apartment with no electricity and light a candle. My mom wouldn't even be home. I wouldn't know where she was. I'd come home, no electricity. I'd sit there, and then when nighttime, I tried to do as much homework as I could. And then when nighttime came, I would light a candle and try to, finish the rest of my work. There were times when I would count pennies out of the drawer to go to Taco Bell and get a taco to eat for dinner when my mom wasn't around. And then the funny thing is, I would go to school. I was on the cheer squad. I eventually became our drill team. I was eventually the captain of the drill team, or co-captain, in my senior year. But I would go to school and no one would know that I was experienced. I would like have this, mask on when I was at school.
Yeah.
And I was pretty, well known, and so I'm popular. So no one would know on the outside by looking at me that I was going through all of this, and I kept it pretty, hidden. That my inside and in my world, my internal world, was just like falling apart. And at that point, we ended up losing our apartment, getting evicted. Pretty much lost all of the childhood memories I had in terms of like my baby book and just everything. Was thrown out on the street, literally on the sidewalk. And went from like my best friend's house at the time, lived with her for a little bit, and then eventually lived with my dad for a little bit. And then my godmother, the one who I mentioned, took me in and allowed me to live with her so that I could finish high school. And that was, I told myself, God, I told God, just get me through this so that I can get to college and and make a better life for myself and set myself up for my children to come, that they would have a better life. So
Mhm.
I worked hard. Those are just some of the things I went through in high school, but eventually graduating the 4.2 and, getting to UCLA, and into some other schools, but I chose UCLA and went there. And I think that was the first time that I truly felt like, okay, this is my time to make my mark and to make this shift into providing a better life for myself and my future to come. And so that was where I felt like, okay, this is where it starts. Now it's like my clean slate.
Mhm.
And throughout my time at UCLA, it was difficult for me. I didn't have a lot of family per se, but I made it through. And so I think that's what motivates me. I don't want my children to feel as though they're going without, or they have to suffer, or be these false people. And so I want them to be able to experience the things that I wasn't able to experience, and also not have the weight of the world on them. I want them to
Mhm.
be able to go to school and live their life and not have to feel as though they have to be a child, but also an adult at the same time. And that's what I felt I had to do. I felt like I was
Yeah.
a child, but living like an adult, because I had to, you know, take care of myself as an
Yeah.
adult. You know.
Yeah. Wow. I've heard this story from you before, and each time it really just touches me because, you know, um, I can take myself there, because it just highlights how phenomenal you really are. And um, while I didn't have that exact experience, I did have the experience of having to compartmentalize, which is what you were describing, having to compartmentalize. You have these issues happening at home and they're pretty severe. But then when you show up at school, you're there, you're ready to perform, you're, able to be all in. And that is an astounding quality to be able to in the face of adversity, you know, shut off the mechanism that would make you just kind of crumble
Yeah.
and rise above, to motivate you, to make you ascend, and then, moving on and attending UCLA and everything else that came thereafter. There's, I always say, for myself, and I believe it's true for you, like you have the you see it at the time when you're going through it, like it's this you feel like, why me? Why do I have to,
Mhm.
why am I chosen to have to deal with these hurdles?
Right.
But it produces someone who has had the perfect training ground for
Yeah.
life's adversity. Like, when the hurdles start to pop up and those boulders start to roll, you know exactly how to tuck and roll, leap over, move to the side,
Yeah.
put the sack on your back, and like,
Mhm.
you know exactly what to do. You're like, oh, I've seen this before. Let me just, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you, and thank you for being so vulnerable, to share that. You also mentioned, how you know you are basically designing a life for your children where they don't have to experience what you experienced. And so I believe it was Oprah, who said, we rehearse or we nurture our inner child through our adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, in almost every case I've seen that to be true, where like for me, it's vacations. I'm everybody
Yeah.
knows I'm always planning the vacation. Like, okay, we're going on vacation.
Right. Right.
Because
Right.
for me it's a big deal because I used to watch on, like people would be taking these vacations, and my family really we couldn't vacation
Mm-hmm.
so much because my mom was just uncomfortable with that kind of thing, and
Right.
so I always felt limited. Now maybe if she didn't have the she didn't verbalize that she was uncomfortable and we didn't go, I might not feel so strongly. But I think because I knew that we were not going to ever go, because, it was like, I'm going on vacation,
Mm-hmm.
when I get a chance to do
Mm-hmm.
so. So, yeah, I can certainly, appreciate, how that shapes you. What would you say? How do you want your children to experience you as a mom, as a woman. For example, uh, I see myself a certain way. And then there's times when there are times when my kids will send me memes of certain memes, and I look at the meme and I have to laugh at myself because I'm like, that's not how I quite designed myself to be, but but it's true. Like I'm this way, like, that's funny. I have done that, so
Right.
how do you want them to experience you?
It's funny you ask that because okay, so let me just go back to the point where we were talking about being a hard worker and to the point of exhaustion. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I'm like, wow, I do work a lot, or I do, and I try to make time for everybody and everything that I have going on. But it's funny how you don't always know how your kids are perceiving you or how they're taking what you're doing, or even if they're appreciating,
Yeah.
what you're doing for them behind the scenes, or what you're doing for them that they can see, or just the lessons that you're trying to give them. And I think it was either, I can't remember, it was either, so let me just say, I've sometimes gotten criticized for doing too much or for working too hard, or maybe not always seeming as though I was putting them first. But in my mind, I feel like I was, because I'm like, I'm trying to do all these things so that they can have a better life and have, experience the things that I didn't get to experience, and not have to worry about money or
they're not having to find money for tacos.
I'm like, I am putting them first. This is my way of putting them first. And not to say that I don't love on them and we don't take vacations and I don't hang out with them and spend, time with them. That's not, but, I think everybody expresses or it shows their love and affection in different ways. And for me, this is the way I'm showing my family, like, this is my contribution, because it's directly related to my experience. But, I can't remember if it was in their senior year, the twins, their senior year, or freshman in college. I can't remember, but they actually came to me and they said, we see how you work very hard and for us, and we appreciate you so much for all that you do for our family. And they thanked me for being that way, because that's how they see me. And they're like, you're a true queen. You're just a queen in our eyes. But they thanked me for all the hard work, and they said that that's how they want to be. So it's funny how they see me that way, which is maybe taken negative by some people. But my kids have actually see it as a positive, and as they've grown up, they've actually come to realize that that's how they want to be as well. They want to work hard, and they want to just be able to provide for their kids, and they appreciate it now. But sometimes they say, you're always on the computer, always, but now they're like, oh, that was a good thing that you were that way. But I think they send me memes too. They say I over exaggerate, and you always go from all the way to the left. If they say one thing, I'm already on number 10. Like, what do you mean? And they're like, you're just taking it too far. So they do see me in that way, which is true. It is how I am. But well, that's me. But I do want them to learn from me, or see in me just the hard work ethic, and just being able to be everything. I feel like I can do it all. Like, I feel like I want to go jump out the sky on an airplane, and I'm gonna do it. Like, nobody tell me I can't do anything.
Yeah, well, that's the feel, right? If they say you can't,
oh yeah, don't ever say I can't, because I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it 10 times in your face, so
exactly. But I'm the same way. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that your kids acknowledged that, like, that you were able to hear, how what that looks like to them, in terms of, your hard work, and everybody does show their love, very differently. Some people are a lot more verbal. Some people are very, touchy feely, and other people are, they show their love through various acts of love, So, so I think that's really awesome that they are able to really appreciate who you are and want to emulate that in their own lives. Yeah.
Did I answer your question though?
You did.
Okay.
You did answer my question. So, how do you find balance? Because you said um, that you have a very strong work ethic, and I happen to know, that you're not quote unquote Jamaican, but but like the stereotypical. But and I always thought that was like pretty awesome. I don't mean to offend anyone by using that example, because I always thought it was pretty awesome. Like when the people would say, "Oh, you're like Jamaican, you have like all these different jobs," but that's a hustler. That's somebody who's really going to get it done. And so, if you because I believe, and that's an entirely different episode and podcast on having a diversified income, because you never know what might happen, So if, there's one bucket that's not quite, paying off, you have another one that's, not too far behind. But anyhow, so how do you find balance in, being a career woman, a wife, a mom, and for a while, I know, where you were greatly contributing to, your father-in-law, and like, how do you find balance for yourself? And do you always have it right, or do you kind of weave in and out of like having that sweet spot where you're like, okay, this is working, and then like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. Like, how do you do that?
That's a good question, because I don't know if I know how I do that yet. I think I try my best to do that. I try to, at the beginning, this sounds real crazy, but this is works for me. But at the beginning of the week, I kind of lay out what my week is going to look like, because I have to do that. Otherwise, I won't have any balance, and I'll find myself, becoming overwhelmed. So for me to just tell myself, oh, you're going to do, just 30 minutes in the morning of meditation, or you're just going to, go to the spa today. I have to actually write that in, or fit that in. Otherwise, I won't do it, and I'll let something else bleed into that time. Or I'll say, well, I didn't have time this week to do it. But if I map out my week for the week, I'm able to ensure that I'm, doing some of the things that make me happy, but also making sure that I'm not missing out or forgetting about the things that I have to do with the kids. So if it means, spending time with them, like on Friday evenings, if I'm, don't have much to do, I'm like, well, let's go out to eat, or just make sure I'm hanging out with the kids. On the weekends, I'm like, let's go do something pre-COVID. But that's sort of how I try to find the balance, or to make time for everyone. And, through my affiliations with other organizations that I'm in, if they're having like an event, I'll tell my husband, oh, this is happening on this day. Let's go do a couple, go as a couple. And he'll say, okay. So just trying to just make sure that I'm making time for everyone. But I do find that the time that I do have for myself usually comes at night, once everyone's asleep. So I'm usually the last one to go to bed. And that's when I'll like catch up on a show or something, or, just do something that I like to do. But no, I don't always get it right. And I think that's something that I'm still trying to understand and figure out how to be better at. But I do definitely recognize that it's something that has to happen. And so I think I try to, as best as I can, to put, like I said, steps in place, or things in place that will help me at least try to achieve it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not optimal, but some kind of way.
Yeah. No, that's a very real answer. I think most of us are always trying to figure it out, because it changes and morphs. And I asked you the question because I want people to hear, with all that you do, right? People, onlookers will say, oh my gosh, you're so organized, and you have it all together, and like your family and everything's so great. And you're like, you say thank you. But it's that training you got early on, that compartmentalizing, right? So you're like, okay, I'm here. And in the background, you got
like I got this to do. I got this to do. Like, what else do I have to do after I leave here? It's like,
right. Yeah. But you know how to be in the moment for that thing, you know? So, and what I appreciate is that, I've been able to come to you at times when, and I guess this kind of feeds into the next question, but I've been able to come to you at times when I myself have been overwhelmed, and like you mentioned, not being judgmental. Uh, I feel I'm able to just lay anything out there in front of you, and you're not going to count it against me, or I don't know. Like I can be flawed
Mm-hmm.
and feel safe still.
Yeah.
And in those moments where I've been trying to balance my time, even, and I'm like, oh, I'm on job number 52 and I'm trying to, and we've been able to have those real conversations. So I appreciate that because it comes from real experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how would you say, how important is friendship to you?
I'd say that's, it's like everything to me, because I feel when I didn't have my family, my friends were my family.
Yeah.
Those are and I consider many of my friends family to this day. I mean, because, and I'm not saying I don't have family, but I'm an only child, and then my relationship growing up with my dad was strained, and then my mom, and during high school that kind of took a turn. And then, I have family in other states, and I have some family in California too, but we're not maybe as close as I would like us to be.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, as I've gotten older, I've definitely forged those relationships, and we've gotten better. But, my friends are my family for the most. I mean, my friends have been there for me, through a lot of the different tribulations that I've experienced in my life. And so I consider them family. So I have a lot of friends, well, a lot of people that I know. I have a handful of people that I call like my true friends, but,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very important.
So yeah, I just want to tell this one story. So about you and friendship.
Okay.
So there was a time where I was actually at that time working on my doctorate, right? And we were both trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Both trying to figure it out. And by figure it out, I mean like figure out the next day. Like, okay, what we gonna do? And you're like, I was like, well, I have this frozen chicken in the freezer. I got a loaf of bread. I got, and we put it together. I split the food in my freezer. You gave me some of the bread. Like we would work it out. Like, I'd watch your kids, you watch my kids, and they would always come home and say, I'm like, did you guys, are you guys hungry? No. Auntie Qiana gave us grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm like, that's my girl. Like, I know she's gonna figure out how to.
Girl, you gonna find something to eat in this house.
A baked potato, grilled cheese sandwich, something. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, at the time it was like this moment, but we both weren't living in the moment because we knew it was temporary, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to get through this. And I really appreciate that we were able to be that for each other. And I know that I'm only one person. So I know you've been that for other people in your life too, where you have that reciprocity and that closeness and that friendship and sisterhood. It's like, it's a sisterhood as opposed to just a friendship. And I always recognize in you that friends are very important in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is an adjustment for me because when I was growing up, like my dad would say, boy, you just really love these friends, don't you? Because I would, elevate my friends. I would, put them pedestal. I would really they were really important in my life. And probably for the same reasons that you're mentioning now that I really think about it. But he would always say, you don't have any friends. We're your friends. We're your only friends.
Right.
We're your only friends in life. But I learned over time that there really are people who really are your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that to be true about you. So, thank you. Thank you for your friendship.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very proud of you. Really am. Okay. Well, so we have come to the end of the interview, but I have one final question for you, and it is unique for this time period because we are in still in a global pandemic, even though some would like to think that we are not.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, we're in this pandemic, but in some instances they don't want to believe it, or because we've had to reopen the economy for the purpose of still having an economy.
Mm-hmm.
People are not navigating in a way that's really respecting the pandemic.
Right.
But anyhow, what do you think COVID is teaching us, given the fact that we all had to, take that big break, that pause? We've even post the shelter in place order, where in some instances, some counties are back in that position. But even post that, with the economy now open, and many people are still working in a way that is not traditional. Like, we're all kind of still at home.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think COVID is teaching us?
I think as a country, as a people, I think it's teaching us that life is fragile, and we need to. This has definitely caused us to slow down a little bit and reprioritize what's important. I mean, we have people losing their jobs, just having to deal with, having the kids at home while they're, moms are working, dads are working. And I think for me personally, it's just taught me to just cherish what I have. We had a COVID scare in my house not too long ago. So I totally freaked out, and I thought about, everything started just coming through my, in my head, like, oh gosh, this and that. And thank God, we are all okay, but just being able to just take time out and just be grateful for what we do have. I mean, I'm grateful to have a job. I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that we have our health. And just, I think it's just taught us to maybe slow down a little bit and reflect on what we have, and not be in such a hurry to, to just do all of these things, but to just maybe spend time with family. Although the kids do get on my nerves being in the house all the time, I cannot lie. But, just being able to have that time with them, because like you said before, we're so busy all the time. We don't always get that time to carve out for them. So helping us, COVID's helping us to get creative and things that we might not do. We'll go on walks with the kids. We'll go to the hiking trail, the walking trail, and let them take their bike. Things that we never did before because we're too busy. Yeah. So I think it's just allowing us to spend time together in different ways that we haven't been able to do before, just because either we didn't think about it or we were too busy, and so we just were going on with life, But
yeah, no, I totally agree with you, especially, with, like you said, everybody's in the house and just trying to, there's a new kind of balance that you have to have, right? So you have the way you balanced your life pre-COVID. Now you have post-COVID, which means like everybody's home, you're working from home. You have to figure out, especially now when school starts back, like how you're going to navigate in terms of, okay, I have to do work from this hour to this hour. I have to get the kids set up. And then I have to be able to, if you have meetings, you have your own meetings, they have their meetings, and you almost become like their personal, well, you're their personal assistant. You're like, okay, you have a meeting at you're meeting at 10. Do you have everything you need?
Right.
Here's your handouts. Here's your
water. Here's your paper. Here's your pen.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always worked I've been working at home from home for years, but I've never had kids in the house. It was just a different experience in the beginning. Like, wait, okay, I have these meetings. I'm just used to being in my own lane during the day, dropping the kids off, and I have like my little routine that I do until I pick them up from school. But having them thrown in the midst of my routine, threw my routine off, and I'm like, ooh, I'm telling my husband, I want to go with you to work. Like, I don't want to be like, can we switch? Because I'm jealous now. Before I used to be, I love staying home. Now I'm like, no, I want to switch with you. You stay here. I'll go to the office. But
no.
I think it's been hard, but I think we're all adjusting. The good thing in it is that we're not the only ones, and so that gives me comfort, I guess, to know that I'm not the only one experiencing this. And so I've been able to talk to my colleagues about different things that they're doing and how they're getting their work done. Friends such as you and others, and they're sharing with me their plan and how they do things. And so it gives me peace and comfort to know that, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing this. A lot of us are, but we're going to get through this. It's like, we've done so many other things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one thing that too, like, so my husband's working from home too now, and it's nice. It's nice. It is nice, and I think too that it also gives him some insight into what really goes on around here.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's not just me. I think when you work from home, there's an assumption that you're just sitting around
Yeah,
and
lounging around all day in your PJs.
lounging, taking well, some people I know do take naps.
Mm-hmm.
But but that's effective, but yeah, that we're watching our stories, and like whatever it is. Stories is kind of like, that's an old term. People don't watch stories. Do people still watch stories? I don't know.
I think so. I only think there's like 3 on still.
Oh, really?
I don't even know.
They moved to reality TV. That's the story now, right?
That's the new story. The real stories, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they're made up now. I feel like it's all.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but there's an assumption that you're not doing anything and you're just kind of hanging out. But he sees like it's actually like it's a real thing, like and then especially with the kids being home, it's like we're trying to juggle, trying to get them situated, and even through the summer, it's a challenge because you don't want them to just you're still working, right?
Right.
But they're they don't have that schedule anymore, so you don't want them to veg out on like electronics. But then I find myself being more lenient with that because it's like, oh well, it's all they have, So
yeah, and then they're quiet. It's keeping them occupied so I can do what I need to do. So
So I do have an agreement with with Trey, our 10-year-old, where he has to still access his iReady account, and he has to do like a certain number of exercises before he can have X amount of time on the.
I should do that.
Whatever.
We have iReady too. I should make that agreement too. We'll have to talk about the agreement.
Yeah. Well, because I'm concerned about the learning gaps because they've been home, and it wasn't like it was and not so much learning at home can't be effective. It's just that they were in one environment and then we immediately shifted to this other environment without really any prep. Everyone was just kind of doing it on the fly. Yeah. So that's all. I'm just trying to make sure that he can add and subtract, when he gets home. Hey, Little House on the Prairie. They used to all go to the barn and have food, and they turned out fine.
I sure did. I
think so. So anyhow, well, thank you so much, Qiana, for being my guest on the show today. And I want to say, woman to woman, sister to sister, friend to friend, I'm very, very proud of you, who you have evolved to be, where the direction you're headed. I'm excited to see what's coming next for you, especially when you finish your degree. How exciting is that? So you're completing your dissertation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
finally,
right around the corner.
I can see the light peeking through.
Yeah.
Crack under the door.
Dr. Amos.
Yes.
Dr. Amos. I can't wait. Yeah. Hopefully, well, I don't know. So depending upon when you finish, hopefully you'll be able to participate in some type of probably not, because it's very soon that you'll be finishing. Well, we'll do something.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Have a phenomenal Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Love you too.
Bye.
I believe that every woman gifts the universe with her own strengths and unique characteristics. Simply because she is born, the universe benefits. Every woman is growing, learning, and evolving. Only positive seeds are sown here, no matter how flawed the soil.
Phenomenal.
Tune in Wednesdays. Phenomenal Woman Wednesday podcast can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You may also visit our website at www.pwwr365.com. Follow us on Instagram at PWWR365. Please be certain to rate, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Take care.